Hey everyone, my name is Jack and today we're going to talk a little bit about thoughts. Now we've all probably heard it said that you are not your thoughts. But what does that actually mean? It's so easy in this fast-paced modern world to become identified with our mental activity, to become identified with our thoughts, and even identified as the thinker. We live our lives with this little internal monologue running in our heads. And if we're not careful, we can very quickly start to believe that these thoughts are not only true and accurate and rational, but that this little voice in our head is actually who we are in essence. Now they've done studies that show that we have thousands and thousands of thoughts every day, right? And about 75% of those thoughts are the same as the previous day and the previous day to that. So what that basically means is that the thoughts we're having each day, a lot of them aren't new thoughts. A lot of them are the same thoughts that we've had on repeat for probably a long time, maybe since childhood. And these kind of thoughts, if they're negative, obviously can cause problems because we dig ourselves deeper and deeper into this rut of negative thinking. So what can we do about it? So something I heard recently was that thinking is the sixth sense. So what does that mean? Well, we have five senses, right? Touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing. With these senses, they all have something in common. There is the object, whether it's the bird chirping outside or the car driving past that we see, and then there is the experience of that object. So in the example of a bird outside, right, I can hear a bird in the tree outside chirping away. Now there is that sound out there, and then there is the perception and the experience of sound as it reaches my ear. And there's someone somewhere that experiences that and says, oh yeah, I can hear that bird. Object and then subject. Same with vision. You know, we see a car driving past. Oh, there's the car out there. And then there's the experience of seeing the car. There's the seer. All senses sort of follow this sort of pattern. Now, this is a dualistic framework. There is other ways of looking at it, but for this exercise, we're going to look at it dualistically. And so now, if we take that same analogy or metaphor of thinking of thoughts as a sense, we can then apply that same subject-object relationship to our own thinking and our mind. For example, if we're having a thought, the thought arises, and then there's some part of us somewhere, maybe it feels like it's located in our head, maybe it feels like it's just located everywhere. There's some part of us that feels like it experiences the thought or internally hears the thought in our mind. But you can feel that distinction, right? You can feel that, you know, you're thinking, I'm going to go for a run tomorrow. And you think that. But then there's almost like a listener as well. So it's almost like a little trick. You can just step back and disidentify with that thought. Now, this is kind of a dualistic way of looking at it, as I said, but the point of it is to deconstruct this idea that you are the thinker, that you are your thoughts. If you're really the thinker of your thoughts, what's your next thought going to be? Can you predict what your next thought is going to be? You can't. You don't know what thought you're going to have next. You don't know what thought you're going to have in 5 minutes. You don't know what you're going to be thinking tomorrow. The thoughts just arise and then disappear. Where they come from, where they go is a mystery. But we don't have to make the thinker and the thoughts the star of the show of our lives. They don't have to take center stage. We can use them and see them as a tool, a very, very good, useful, necessary tool to navigate the world, but they don't have to be the core of our identity, because when we make the thinker and intellectual thought the core basis of who we are, or who we identify as, this is how people get into all sorts of trouble if they have any kind of, psychosis or break from reality, where they start having all kind of delusions and they believe the things that their thoughts are telling them, and they end up in all kinds of trouble, right? So the whole point of this exercise or talk is about planting that seed to start thinking, the thoughts I hear in my head are not necessarily me. They're not my soul. They're not my true nature. They're not my true whole self. It is a part of me. And if you don't believe me, give it a go yourself. Next time you notice a thought, just ask yourself, who is this thought actually appearing to? Or what is this thought appearing to? And then just rest in that. You don't need to get an intellectual thought-based response. So you have the thought, and then you ask yourself, who is this thought appearing to? And there should be a gap. You should feel an empty kind of spacious awareness that doesn't feel distant from you. It doesn't feel foreign. It feels more you than anything else. And you likely can't locate this sense of spacious awareness anywhere in your head or in your body. It's your entire direct experience. And if you play around with this, you get to the point where you can recognize this more easily, and you can then try and rest in that sort of space. And when you're sucked into thought, which is going to constantly happen, you just try and reorient and remember, okay, this is just my mind doing what the mind does. It's the monkey mind. I'm going to reorientate to that spacious, whole, integrated, all-pervasive sense of self, and try and live my life and operate from there. So this can actually be a really valuable insight, because if we're able to create a bit of space between our thoughts and the thinking mind and our true nature, we are less likely to get sucked into those bullshit stories. So if every day our mind is throwing out all this rubbish, negativity, and just thoughts coming at us based from a place of fear or anxiety about the future, or worries about what's going to happen tomorrow, or stressing about the past, or whatever it is, it's helpful to realize that a lot of these thoughts are likely not even based in any truth or reality, and that it's simply our mind spinning its wheels. The thinking mind really wants to stay relevant. It wants to be the center of attention. It wants to be seen as running the show. If we're able to disengage from that and see the thinking mind as more of a tool, then we're able to find a bit more peace and a bit more space in our day-to-day life. One final thing I'd like to touch on is the power of words and the way that we talk to ourselves. If you're in a reactionary state of anger, or you're really upset and you're saying, I'm so angry, or I'm so sad, I'm so depressed, or I'm so anxious, think about what you're telling yourself. Think about what words you're using and what information you're giving your body and your nervous system. You're saying, I am angry, or I am anxious. And your body hears that and thinks, I'm anxious. It starts to identify with that. Your nervous system responds to that. Something that I try and do, it doesn't always work, but it's another tool in the toolbox, is if I'm really angry, for example, and I think, oh, I'm so angry. If I can have that little moment of space and think, no, I'm not angry, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling this emotion of strong anger. Not in a way to try and block it or ignore it or bypass it or anything like that, but just having that tiny little shift in perception of not being identified as anger, but being identified, as we talked about, that spacious awareness of whole integrated self, and realizing, yeah, I can feel that anger. I can feel that strong emotion coming up. It doesn't necessarily make it go away, and we're not even trying to make it go away. We're not trying to change the anxiety or the anger, but we're trying to change our relationship to it. Rather than being completely tunnel vision boxed in and identified as that emotion of anger or anxiety, we get to step back a bit and see, wow, okay, I'm really pissed off. I'm really angry. I'm really feeling that anger. Hopefully you can understand what I'm getting at here. This is something I've used quite a lot in my own life, and I find it to be pretty helpful. And like I said, it doesn't always work. You don't always remember to do it, but if you just kind of plant that seed in there, every now and then you'll catch yourself and think, hang on, I'm not anxiety. I'm not anxious. I'm feeling anxious. Who I am is deeper than these fleeting emotions that come and go each day. So that's all I've got for you for today. Hopefully that can create a bit of space in your mental landscape by being able to disengage and disentangle from the monkey mind and rest more into your true nature. And ultimately it all comes down to, for me, moving from here and moving into your body, getting out of your head, getting into your body. And whatever way you can find to do that is great. See you next time.